I never meant for a simple drive to turn into this nightmare that still wakes me up at night, heart racing like I'm back in that room. It all started last October, right after the divorce papers came in the mail. Sarah and I had been high school sweethearts, married young, thinking love would fix everything. But 8 years later, the fights got uglier. Over money, over kids we never had, over the way silence filled our house like smoke. The last straw was when she found out about my late nights at work, though it was nothing but exhaustion keeping me away. She left with half our stuff and a note that said, "You're lost, and I can't find you anymore." I stared at that note for days, feeling like a failure. Needed to get out, so I packed my old blue Chevy pickup, the one with the dented fender from that winter skid years ago, with a duffel of clothes, a cooler of sandwiches and water, my thermos for coffee, and a stack of paperback thrillers I'd bought at a garage sale. No plan, just head south from Pittsburgh, follow the Appalachian highways where the roads twist like veins through the hills. Figured the mountains would swallow my thoughts, give me space to breathe. The first day was okay. Drove through Pennsylvania's rolling fields turning gold with fall, then into West Virginia where the trees got denser, pines and oaks crowding the shoulders, their branches scraping the sky. Stopped at a roadside diner for lunch, greasy burger and fries, coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with faded tattoos on her arms, chatted about the weather turning cold early. "Watch for fog in the valleys," she warned, her voice rough from years of smoking. I nodded, paid with cash, and kept going. By evening, fatigue set in, my eyes blurring the white lines. That's when I saw the sign for Whispering Pines Motel, poking out from the mist like a forgotten relic. The neon was half dead, buzzing faintly. Wi, per, nung, pies, mo, el, vacancy. The lot was gravel, uneven and pocked with puddles from recent rain. Only one other vehicle, an ancient Ford pickup, rested to the frame, tires flat and weeds growing up through the wheel wells. Looked like it had been parked there since the 80s. I pulled in next to it, engine ticking as it cooled. The air smelled of wet earth and pine sap, crisp and heavy. The office was a small attachment to the main building, glass doors smudged with fingerprints. A bell jingled weakly when I pushed inside. The smell hit me, stale air mixed with old coffee grounds and the faint tang of cigarette ash ground into the carpet. Behind the counter sat an elderly man, maybe in his 70s, skin pale and wrinkled like crumpled paper, eyes sunk deep in shadows that made him look hollowed out. He wore a flannel shirt buttoned wrong, one side higher than the other. Didn't look up right away, just flipped a page in a yellowed ledger. "Room?" I asked, voice echoing a bit in the empty space. He grunted, reached under the counter without a word, and slid a brass key toward me. It was cold to the touch, engraved with 12 in worn script. 3 nights, I said, pulling out my wallet. Cash. He nodded once, took the bills, and pointed a bony finger toward the door. End of the row. Quiet here. His voice was gravelly, like he hadn't spoken in hours. I wanted to ask if there were other guests, but he turned back to his book, dismissing me. Outside, the fog had thickened, swirling around my ankles as I walked to room 12. The building was single-story, 10 or 12 units in a line, paint peeling in long strips to reveal weathered wood beneath. Lights over each door were dim, yellow bulbs casting weak pulls on the cracked sidewalk. Room 12's door stuck when I turned the key, wood swollen from humidity. I shouldered it open, and the hinge creaked like a warning. Inside was dim, lit by a single lamp on the nightstand with a shade stained brown from age. The bed was queen-sized, comforter floral and faded, smelling faintly of laundry soap mixed with something musty, like wet leaves. A small dresser against one wall, top scarred with cigarette burns. Bathroom to the right, tiny, with a shower stall that had mildew spots in the grout, sink faucet dripping slowly. No TV, just an old rotary phone on the nightstand, cord frayed. The wall shared with room 13 was plain plaster, painted beige but cracking in places. I glanced outside before closing the door. Room 13's entrance was chained shut, a heavy padlock gleaming dully, and a handwritten sign taped there. Closed, do not enter. Its window was boarded with plywood, nails rested. Figured it was condemned, maybe water damage or something. Didn't bother me then. I unpacked a bit, hung my jacket on the hook by the door, set the thermos on the dresser, pulled out a book called Shadows in the Hollow, a thriller about lost hikers. Made myself comfortable on the bed, shoes off, back against the headboard. Poured hot coffee, the steam rising in the cool air. Rain started then, a light patter on the tin roof that grew into a steady rhythm. It was soothing, drowning out the distant hum of occasional trucks on the highway beyond the trees. I read for an hour or so, the story pulling me in, characters hearing strange calls in the woods, dismissing them as animals. Around midnight, I set the book down, turned off the lamp, and lay back. The darkness was thick, only faint light from the parking lot seeping through the thin curtains. That's when the whispers began. At first, so soft I thought it was the wind slipping through gaps in the window frame, or rain echoing oddly off the roof. Murmurs, indistinct, coming from the wall to room 13. I shifted, pulling the blanket higher, tried to ignore it, but they persisted, rising and falling like a conversation heard through water. A woman's voice, high and pleading, then a man's low and gruff. Words weren't clear, just tones. Her sounding desperate, him deny, then a pause broken by what might have been a sob. It looped, almost mechanical, starting over every minute or so. My eyes snapped open in the dark.
This beast.
Sleep was impossible after that. I turned the lamp back on, its weak glow pushing back the dark, but not the unease. Paced more, coffee gone cold in my mug. The whispers faded around 3 a.m., leaving only rain. I dozed in fits, dreams of arguing in endless hallways, Sarah's face blurring into shadows. Woke at dawn, light gray and watery through the window. Head throbbed, eyes gritty. Splashed cold water on my face, mirror showing a tired man I barely recognized. Stubble dark, lines deeper around my mouth. Dressed and went to the office. The clerk was there, same flannel, same ledger. "Coffee?" I asked. He pointed to a pot on a hot plate, brew black and thick. As he poured, I tried casual. "Hear any noises last night? From the rooms?" He paused, eyes meeting mine for the first time, pale blue, unblinking. "Wind plays tricks here, best not to listen." His words hung, then he turned away. I took the cup outside, steam rising in the chill. Fog lingered in the valleys, hills rising green and silent. Spent the morning driving, winding roads where sunlight filtered through leaves in golden shafts. Stopped at an overlook, stared at the endless ridges, trying to shake the night off. Grief does funny things, I thought, makes you hear echoes of your own mess. Lunch at a small-town cafe, ham sandwich, pie that tasted homemade. Locals at the counter talked low about hunting season, weather turning. One old-timer, beard white and wild, noticed my out-of-state plates. "Tourist?" I nodded. "Staying at Whispering Pines?" "How'd he know? Only spot around." He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Old place, got stories." I leaned in. "What kind?" He shrugged, sipped his coffee. "Folks check in, don't always check out right. Echoes, they say." The waitress shushed him, but he just grinned. "Mountains hold on to pain, whispers in the walls." I laughed it off, but my stomach nodded. Drove back slower, dread building as the motel sign appeared through the trees. Room 12 felt colder when I entered, air stale. Unpacked the cooler, ate a sandwich, read to distract. As dusk fell, fog rose again, wrapping the building like a shroud. Rain threatened, but held off. I sat by the window, watching shadows lengthen in the woods. Around 10 p.m., the whispers started, earlier, softer at first, but building. Same couples fight, looping, plea, denial, sob. I ignored it, buried in my book, but they crept in, then personal again. "Sarah, why'd you go?" In the woman's voice, laced with my accent somehow. I dropped the book, heart pounding, knocked on the wall, 3 sharp raps. Voices paused, then resumed, mocking. "Knock if you hear." Laughter followed, faint and hollow. My skin prickled, sweat beaded, despite the chill. Memories flooded. Our wedding in a small church, rain that day too.
The miscarriage 2 years in, Sarah's silent tears, my job loss that made me distant, all woven into the murmurs. Shadow shifted peripherally, corners darkening, light from the lamp dimming as if absorbed. I paced, breath shallow, tried the door to leave, but fog outside was impenetrable, highway invisible, no choice but stay. Sat against the far wall, knees drawn up, listening as voices multiplied. Now a child's whine, an elder's regret mixing with mine. They called my name softly, inviting, come closer, listen. The night stretched endless. Around midnight, rain finally came, hard sheets against the window, whispers adapting, rising over it. I cried then, hot tears for Sarah, for us, for whatever lingered here, feeding on sorrow. By 4 a.m., they quieted, rain easing to drizzle. I collapsed on the bed, sleep claiming me in ragged bursts. Dreams of chained doors opening to dark rooms where faces waited, whispering secrets. Second day dawned misty. I felt wrecked, body aching, mind foggy. Showered, water lukewarm and sputtering. Mirror steamed. When I wiped it, my reflection looked gaunt, eyes haunted. Went to the office, clerk absent, door unlocked. Inside, ledger open to yellowed pages, names faded, dates from decades ago. One entry caught my eye, room 13, incident, do not rent. Scrawled note, voices reported, heart skipped. I left quickly, hiked a nearby trail to clear my head. Path narrow, roots tripping me, leaves crunching underfoot. Forest dense, birds calling eerie, wind sighing through branches like breaths. Saw a digger stand stock still, watching me with black eyes. Felt exposed, observed. Back at the motel by afternoon, tire on my trunk low, nail embedded, slow leak. Changed it in the lot, gravel sharp on my hands. Clerk watching from the office without offering help. That evening, storm brewed, sky bruised purple, thunder rumbling distant. I ate canned soup heated on a camp stove I pot, flavor bland. Read fitfully, whispers began at 9, aggressive now. Not just the couple, chorus of pains, a mother's loss, a father's betrayal, my own woven in. Sarah didn't leave, you pushed her, accusation sharp as knives. I yelled back, voice hoarse, shadows pulsed, room feeling smaller, walls closing. Tried calling a friend on my cell, no signal, bars dead, alone, rain lashed, wind howling, whispers peaked around 2 a.m., pleading, join us, unchain the door. Terror gripped me, I barricaded with the chair, flashlight beam sweeping corners where darkness seemed to retreat reluctantly. Dawn broke stormy, whispers fading to echoes in my head. Third day, resolve cracked, packed early, but storm delayed, road slick, visibility poor. Walked the property in light rain, found back of room 13 overgrown, vines choking the foundation, peeled a board loose, inside dusty, furniture shrouded, air thick with decay. Something moved. No, just my shadow. Clerk, when I returned the key, said nothing. Drove away as fog lifted, mountains receding in the mirror, but whispers followed, faint in the engine hum, in radio static. Months later, home in the city, life resumed. New job, therapy sessions where I mentioned hallucinations from stress. Dated a bit, laughed again. But nights, quiet descends, and I hear them. Soft pleas from empty rooms. Sarah's name, my regrets. Drove back once, parked across from the motel. Sign still flickering, didn't go in, turned around. But I know they're waiting, echoes of pain, drawing me back. Mountains don't forget, neither do I.
I pulled up to the Whispering Pines Motel that second evening, with the weight of the mountains pressing down on me. The kind of heavy that seeps into your bones and makes every breath feel labored. The divorce from Sarah was still fresh, like a wound that hadn't scabbed over yet. 8 years gone in a flurry of arguments and silences that grew longer than our conversations. I'd driven south from Ohio, no real plan, just needing the road to swallow the mess in my head. The first night at the motel had been bad enough. The whispers from room 13 seeping through the wall like smoke, replaying fragments of my life I wanted buried. But I chalked it up to exhaustion, to the isolation of these Appalachian backroads where the trees crowd in like they're listening. A day out would fix it, I thought. So I'd laced up my hiking boots that morning, grabbed a water bottle and a granola bar from my pack, and headed to the trails marked on a crumpled map I'd found in the glove box. The trailhead was a few miles down a gravel road that twisted up the hillside, potholes jarring my old Ford truck until my teeth rattled. I parked in a small clearing, the only vehicle there, surrounded by dense forest that smelled of pine resin and damp earth. The signpost was weathered, paint flaking, ridge loop trail, 5 miles, moderate. I started walking, the path narrow and root-strewn, climbing steadily through underbrush thick with ferns and wild rhododendron. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in shifting patterns, warming my face in patches. Birds called from the branches, sharp trills that echoed oddly, like warnings. I pushed on, sweat beading on my forehead, legs burning as the incline steepened. Every so often I'd stop to catch my breath, leaning against a moss-covered trunk, listening to the wind sigh through the leaves. No other hikers, no sounds of civilization. Just the mountain, vast and indifferent, making me feel small. I thought about Sarah then, how we talked about hiking these trails once, back when things were good, planning trips we never took. The memory stung, but the physical ache drowned it out. By noon, I'd reached an overlook, a rocky outcrop with a view of rolling ridges fading into blue haze. I sat on a boulder, ate my granola, drank water that tasted metallic from the bottle. For a moment, the world felt right, quiet, uncomplicated. But as the afternoon wore on and I looped back down, the unease from the night before crept in again. Shadows lengthened under the trees, turning the path dim and twisting. A deer crossed ahead, freezing to stare at me with eyes like black marbles before bounding away. I quickened my pace, arriving back at the truck as the light turned golden, slanting low. Dusk fell fast in the valleys, the sky deepening to indigo with no moon to light the way. Stars pricked through high above, cold and distant. I drove back to the motel slowly, tires humming on the cracked asphalt, the forest pressing close on both sides like silent sentinels guarding secrets. The neon sign flickered into view first, whispering pines buzzing erratically, casting red and blue glows across the gravel lot. My truck was still the only one there, parked where I'd left it, next to that rusted-out pickup like it hadn't moved in decades, tires deflated, body eaten by corrosion, windows filmed with crime. I scanned for the clerk's car, but the office was dark, door shut tight, no light spilling from the window. Fog had started rising from the creek bed behind the motel, thin tendrils curling across the ground like fingers reaching out. I grabbed my key from my pocket, the brass cool and heavy, and walked to room 12. The sidewalk was uneven, weeds pushing through cracks, and the air carried a chill that raised goosebumps on my arms. The key stuck in the lock again, jammed halfway, resisting like the door knew I shouldn't be there. I twisted it hard, leaning my shoulder in, until it gave with a reluctant grind. The door swung open into darkness, the smell of mildew and overcarpet rushing out to meet me. I flicked the switch inside, the overhead bulb hummed to life, casting a sickly yellow light that barely reached the corners. The room looked unchanged. Queen bed with its sagging mattress and faded floral spread, nightstand scarred from years of careless guests, dresser with drawers that stuck. Thin curtains hung limp over the single window, facing the woods that loomed black beyond the lot. I dropped my pack by the bed, kicked off my boots, mud caked from the trail, and headed for the bathroom. Needed a shower to wash off the sweat and dirt, to steam away the lingering tension. The bathroom was cramped, mirror spotted with age spots, sink faucet dripping steadily into a rust-stained basin. I turned the shower knob to hot, waited as the pipes groaned and clanged, water sputtering before steadying into a scalding steam. Steam filled the space quickly, clouding the mirror in a white haze. I stepped under the spray, eyes closed, letting the heat pound my shoulders, easing the knots from the hike. Minutes passed. When I finally shut off the water and toweled dry, the mirror was completely fogged. I wiped a circle clear with my palm, the glass cold under my fingers. My reflection emerged, hair plastered dark, skin flushed red, eyes shadowed from laugh or sleep. Just me, ordinary. I reached for my razor on the sink edge, lathered up, started shaving the stubble along my jaw. That's when it started. I turned slightly to grab the towel, wiping foam from my neck. In the mirror, the figure, me, didn't turn right away. It lingered facing forward for a beat too long, razor still poised, before jerking to match my position, like a delayed broadcast. My hand froze. I stared, raised my left arm slowly, watching. The reflection raised its arm, but a fraction late, the motion stuttering. I lowered it. The delay repeated. Heartbeat quickened in my chest, a dull thump echoing in the small space. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, the eyes in the glass blinked back. On time, maybe. I told myself it was the steam playing tricks, light refracting weirdly on the moisture, fatigue from the hike. But the hollow look
look in those reflected eyes didn't match mine. Not quite. Mine were tired, sure, but those held something deeper. A quiet desperation like someone trapped and pleading silently. I stepped closer, breath fogging the glass anew. The surface seemed to ripple faintly, like water disturbed by a pebble. Not much, just enough to make my skin crawl. Behind the reflected me, in the dim glow of the bedroom visible through the doorway in the mirror, a shape emerged. Vague at first, taller than me, slender, standing just out of full view, half obscured by the frame. No details, no face, no clothes, just an outline, still as a statue. The air in the bathroom thickened, heavy with unspoken presence, like the room had exhaled and forgotten to inhale again. I spun around fast, heart slamming. The bedroom was empty, bed untouched, door closed, no one there. I turned back to the mirror. The shape was gone, but my reflection, it had turned a second after I did. The motion dissynced again. I backed out of the bathroom slowly, never breaking eye contact with the glass until I was in the main room, door shut behind me. Sat on the bed's edge, towel still around my waist, staring at the closed bathroom door. The quiet pressed in, no whispers tonight from room 13, just the faint buzz of the neon sign outside filtering through the walls. My mind raced. Optical illusion, bad wiring making the light flicker imperceptibly, or something worse, tied to this forgotten motel in the middle of nowhere. I dressed quickly, jeans, flannel shirt, socks, avoiding any glance back at the bathroom, but the room had other reflections. The small convex mirror on the dresser, meant for makeup or whatever, got the lamplight. I avoided it at first, but curiosity, or stupidity, pulled my eyes there. In it, my seated figure was clear, distorted by the curve. I waved a hand, the reflection waved back, late, and behind it, another shape, smaller this time, crouched low near the bed. I whipped my head around. Nothing, just shadows from the lamp. The night stretched on like that. I didn't turn off the light, paced the room instead, floorboards creaking under the thin carpet. Every reflective surface became a threat. The polished brass doorknob gleaming dully, showing a tiny inverted image of the room where my hand reached out a moment after I did. The window panes, dark as oil, reflecting the interior when I dared peek through the curtains. In them, my silhouette stood by the glass, but the head tilted slightly when mine stayed straight, like it was listening to something I couldn't hear. Subtle mismatches at first, a blink out of sync, a shoulder slumping when mine held firm, then bolder. Around midnight, I got the dresser mirror showing me standing when I was still sitting, taking 2 full steps toward the window before catching up. And always, those outlines, faint, human-shaped, appearing just behind the reflected me. A woman with long hair hanging limp, a man with broad shoulders, head bowed, a child, small and hunched, never moving when I looked directly in the mirror, but when I glanced away and back, they'd shifted positions, closer or farther, like they were circling. I sat against the headboard, knees up, arms wrapped around them, sweat beaded cold on my forehead, despite the chills seeping through the walls. Memories flooded in unbidden, Sarah's face in our wedding photos, smiling in a way that lit up rooms. The fights where that smile turned to tears, the day she packed her bags, her reflection in the hallway mirror as she left, distorted by my own angry shadow. Was this place pulling that out, mirroring not just my body, but the regrets I'd carried here? The power flickered around 2 a.m., the bulb dimming to a glow, then surging back. In that moment, the window reflection showed a room full of shapes, dozens, crowding behind my seated form, their outlines overlapping like ghosts in a photograph. When the light steadied, they were gone, but my reflection remained out of sync, mouth opening in a silent scream while mine stayed clamped shut. I whispered to myself, this isn't real, but the words echoed wrong in the quiet. Tried rationalizing, maybe mold in the walls causing hallucinations, or carbon monoxide from a bad heater, but the air smelled clean enough, and my head was clear, too clear. The dread built slow, a creeping vine twisting through my gut. By 4 a.m., exhaustion blurred the edges, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined the reflections moving on their own, stepping out of the glass. Dawn finally grayed the curtains, light seeping in weak and watery. The mismatches faded with the night, subtler in daylight, almost gone. I could look in the bathroom mirror and see just me. No delay, no shapes, but the hollow desperation in those eyes. It lingered, like a stain. I showered quick, dressed, packed my duffel. The clerk was back when I went to check out, sitting motionless behind the counter, eyes on his ledger. Leaving early, he asked without looking up. I nodded, dropped the key. Things happen here, he muttered, almost to himself. Mirrors show what you bring. I froze. What? He shrugged. Folks see themselves.
I never thought I'd end up in that place like that old motel, tucked away in the shadow of the Appalachian Mountains. It was one of those forgotten spots off a winding back road in West Virginia. The kind where the trees crowd in so close, they seem to whisper secrets to the wind. I'd been driving for days, trying to outrun the mess I'd left behind in the city. A bad breakup, a job that chewed me up and spit me out, the usual regrets that pile up until you can't breathe. The mountains called to me, I guess, with their promise of solitude and fresh starts. But solitude can turn on you quick out here, especially when the wilderness feels like it's watching back. The motel was called the Ridgeview Inn, though the sign was so faded it might as well have been a ghost itself. Peeling paint on the wooden exterior, a row of rooms on the ground floor, and another up a rickety outdoor stairwell that creaked underfoot like old bones. The owner, an elderly man with a face like weathered bark, handed me the key to room 12 with much talk. "Storm's coming in a few days," he muttered, his eyes darting to the darkening sky. "Best not wander too far." I nodded, figuring it was just small-town caution. The lot was empty save for my beat-up truck, and the surrounding woods stretched out endlessly, thick with pines and underbrush that swallowed the light even at midday. That first night was uneventful, or so I told myself. I unpacked my duffel bag, spread out on the sagging Ned, and listened to the distant hoot of an owl. The room smelled of musty carpets and faint cigarette smoke from years gone by, the kind that seeps into the walls and never leaves. I flipped through channels on the ancient TV, static crackling like laughter in the quiet. Sleep came fitful, broken by the occasional rustle outside. Probably just animals, I thought. Deer or raccoons scavenging in the trash bins. But there was something about the isolation that gnawed at me, a subtle unease like the air was too heavy, pressing down with the weight of untold stories. By the second day, I'd ventured out a bit, hiking a trail that snaked into the forest behind the motel. The paths were overgrown, marked by faded blazes on trees that looked like they'd been clawed by something bigger than a bear. Locals in the nearby town, a cluster of rundown shops and a diner with greasy spoons, warned me about the backwoods. "Folks go missing up there sometimes," an old woman at the counter said, her voice low as she poured my coffee. "Not animals, mind you. Something else. Feral types, or maybe just the mountains claiming their own." I laughed it off, but her words stuck, echoing in my head as I trudged back to the motel, under a canopy so dense it felt like nightfall at noon. That evening, as I sat on the porch chair outside my room, staring into the trees, I swear I heard a faint echo. Footsteps, maybe, crunching leaves far off. But the wind picked up, and it was gone. The third night hit like a reckoning. The storm rolled in just after dusk, thunder growling from the peaks like some ancient beast stirring awake. Rain lashed against the windows and sheets, turning the world outside into a blurry haze. I'd thought about packing up and leaving that morning, the pull of the road tempting me onward. But pride, or maybe something deeper, a stubborn curiosity, kept me rooted. The motel felt alive in the gale, groaning and shifting as if breathing. Power flickered, the lights buzzing before plunging the room into dimness lit only by my phone's glow. I paced the floor, the worn boards creaking under my boots, the wall seeming to inch closer with each lap. The air grew stale, thick with the scent of old wood, mildew, and something metallic, like blood long dried. It started around midnight, subtle at first, a distant rumble I mistook for thunder, but no, it was rhythmic, deliberate. Footsteps, ascending the outdoor stairwell, the one leading to the upper rooms, which I'd noticed were boarded up, plywood nailed haphazardly over doors and windows, faded condemned signs flapping in the wind. The owner had mentioned a fire years back, or maybe structural issues. He was vague, changing the subject quick. No one else was checked in. The lot was a sea of puddles under the storm, my truck the lone sentinel. Yet there they were, slow, heavy treads on the wooden steps, each one echoing like a heartbeat in the night. I froze mid-pace, straining to listen. The rain hammered the roof, but the footsteps cut through, creaking wood protesting under weight. They paused at the first landing, a good 10 seconds of silence that stretched my nerves taut. Then they resumed, climbing higher, closer to my level on the ground floor. No, wait, the stairwell wrapped around, leading up to those abandoned rooms above. But my door was at the base, adjacent to the stairs. I crept to the window, peeling back the musty curtain just enough to peer out. Rain-slicked darkness stared back,
The stairwell a shadowy outline illuminated faintly by a flickering security light. No figure, no shadow moving, just the sound, insistent, drawing nearer. My heart pounded in my ears, a counterpoint to the steps. They stopped again, this time at what sounded like the top landing, right above me. I held my breath, waiting for them to descend or fade, but instead, a new sound, a soft scrape, like something dragging along the railing. Then silence, broken only by the storm's fury. I backed away from the window, telling myself it was the wind playing tricks, branches scraping or the building settling. But deep down, I knew better. The Appalachians have a way of making the ordinary feel wrong, like the veil between what's real and what's lurking just beyond thins out here. Around 2 a.m. they started again, from the bottom this time, as if whatever it was had looped back without me hearing the descent. Slow, deliberate, each step measured like it was savoring the approach. I sat on the edge of the bed, fists clenched in the sheets, sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill seeping through the cracks. The pauses grew longer, as if it was listening for me, for any sign I was there. I imagined eyes pressed to the gaps in the boards upstairs, peering down into the night, searching. The owner had mentioned the motel's history in passing, built in the 50s for loggers and miners, but rumors of disappearances, folks checking in and never checking out. Ghost stories, he'd scoffed, but his eyes didn't match the words.
I spent the day exploring, or trying to. Drove down back roads that twisted like snakes, past abandoned homesteads with roofs caved in, vines choking the porches. The forest here felt alive, watchful. Trees so tall they blocked the sky, underbrush thick with briars that snagged at my jeans when I stopped to stretch. I found a trailhead, hiked a mile in before the path narrowed to nothing, swallowed by ferns and fallen logs. Locals at a roadside diner, the kind with vinyl booths cracked from age, warned about the area. "Don't go too deep," an old man in overalls said, nursing black coffee. "Folks get lost up here. Not just trails, lost in other ways." His companion, a woman with leathery skin, nodded. "Feral ones, they say. People who went wild generations back, live off the land, avoid the world, but they watch, always watching." I laughed it off, but their eyes didn't join in. Back at the motel, the lot still empty, that rested pickup like a sentinel. I ate a sandwich from my cooler, sat on the stoop watching the sun dip behind the ridges, painting the sky blood red. That second night, I was ready, or thought I was. I wedged the chair under the knob after locking up, propped it firm. Lay in bed with the lamp on, phone in hand, though signal was spotty, one bar flickering in and out. Sleep came reluctant. Dreams again of my mother, but twisted now, her standing outside a door, scratching at the lock with bony fingers. I woke before the sound started, sweat-soaked, the room stuffy despite the chill outside. Clock said 2:45. Then it began. Scrape. Longer pause. Scrape. Even longer pause. Slower than before, more deliberate. Like whatever was out there knew I was awake, knew I was listening. The knob didn't move, but the sound circled the keyhole, probing, patient. I didn't go to the door this time, just sat up, back against the headboard, staring at the thin light strip. No shadow broke it. The scraping went on, intermittent, for over an hour. Pauses stretched so long I'd almost relax, then it'd start again, sharp, insistent. My mind wandered to dark places. What if it was one of those feral people the locals mentioned? Descendants of miners or loggers who never came back from the woods, living savage, drawn to lights like moths, but with human cunning. Or something tied to the motel's history. I'd overheard whispers at the diner about a string of disappearances years back, travelers checking in and vanishing, rooms left tidy as if they'd just stepped out. The mountains, they said, claimed her. I didn't go to the door this time. Just sat up, back against the headboard, staring at the thin light strip. No shadow broke it.
The scraping went on, intermittent for over an hour. Pauses stretched so long I'd almost relax, then it'd start again, sharp, insistent. I found a trailhead, hiked a mile in before the path narrowed to nothing, swallowed by ferns and fallen logs. Locals at a roadside diner, the kind with vinyl booths cracked from age, warned about the area. "Don't go too deep," an old man in overalls said, nursing black coffee. "Folks get lost up here. Not just trails, lost in other ways." His companion, a woman with leathery skin, nodded. "Feral ones, they say. People who went wild generations back, live off the land, avoid the world, but they watch, always watching." I laughed it off, but their eyes didn't join in. Back at the motel, the lot still empty, that rested pickup like a sentinel. I ate a sandwich from my cooler, sat on the stoop watching the sun dip behind the ridges, painting the sky blood red. That second night, I was ready, or thought I was. I wedged the chair under the knob after locking up, propped it firm. Lay in bed with the lamp on, phone in hand, though signal was spotty, one bar flickering in and out. Sleep came reluctant. Dreams again of my mother, but twisted now, her standing outside a door, scratching at the lock with bony fingers. I woke before the sound started, sweat-soaked, the room stuffy despite the chill outside. Clock said 2:45. Then it began. Scrape. Longer pause. Scrape. Even longer pause. Slower than before, more deliberate, like whatever was out there knew I was awake, knew I was listening. The knob didn't move, but the sound circled the keyhole, probing, patient. I didn't go to the door this time. Just sat up, back against the headboard, staring at the thin light strip. No shadow broke it. The scraping went on, intermittent for over an hour. Pauses stretched so long I'd almost relax, then it'd start again, sharp, insistent. My mind wandered to dark places. What if it was one of those feral people the locals mentioned? Descendants of miners or loggers who never came back from the woods, living savage, drawn to lights like moths, but with human cunning. Or something tied to the motel's history. I'd overheard whispers at the diner about a string of disappearances years back, travelers checking in and vanishing, rooms left tidy as if they'd just stepped out. The mountains, they said, claimed her. Back at the motel, dusk falling early under the tree canopy. The woman was gone from the office, a back soon sign taped to the door. I ate Avon in my room, canned soup heated on the hot plate I carried. The heater rattled to life after a kick, but the warmth didn't touch the chill in my bones. Night came, stars pinpricks through the pines. I barricaded the door better, chair and duffel pushed against it. Sat in the dark, lamp off to save my eyes, waiting. It started earlier, 1:15 by my phone. Scrape, scrape, pause. Scrape, scrape, longer pause. Then the knob turned, a slight twist, the latch clicking softly against the frame. My breath hitched. The deadbolt held, but the pressure was there, gentle, testing. Release. Then again, the chair creaked under the strain. I slid to the floor, back to the wall, knees drawn up. The scraping intensified, circling faster, more urgent. Pauses filled with my pounding heart. I imagine hands on the other side, calloused, dirt-grimed, nails broken from scratching earth, or paler, colder, from someone long gone but not rested. Hours dragged. The knob tried repeatedly, each time with a bit more force, but never violent. Patient, always patient. Around 3, a new sound, a low sigh, like breath exhaled against the wound, then whispering faint, words indistinguishable but tone pleading, sorrowful, my name or another's. The barrier held, but the presence felt closer, seeping through cracks like smoke. Dawn broke, sounds fading with the dark, more marks on the lock, a pattern now, like a symbol etched deliberate. Check out. Office empty. I left the key, cash, drove away fast. But the scraping vows, in quiet nights, in locked doors elsewhere, patient, waiting. The mountains taught me, some locks hold, but echoes never truly leave.
I never meant to stay in those mountains as long as I did. After the funeral in Georgia, the world felt like it had lost its edges. Everything blurred, softened. Heavy with a quiet that followed me like smoke. My mother's service was small, held in the same little Baptist church she'd attended since she was a girl. Closed casket. She'd been adamant about that. "I don't want them remembering me like this," she'd whispered once during one of the good weeks, when the morphine hadn't yet stolen her voice completely. I stood at the front in a black shirt that no longer fit quite right, listening to the preacher speak of peace and eternal rest, while the ceiling fans turned slow overhead and the scent of lilies mixed with old wood polish. When it was over, people hugged me, said the usual things. "She's in a better place. She fought so hard." And I nodded, mouth dry, until the parking lot emptied, and I was alone with the fresh mound of red clay, and the headstone had still looked too new. I didn't go back to the apartment. Couldn't. The thought of walking through that door, seeing her recliner still angled toward the television, the half-finished crossword on the side table, the faint lavender smell that clung to everything, it was too much. So I packed a duffel, locked the place, and got in the car. North. No real destination, just motion. Interstates first, then state routes, then the kind of narrow 2 lanes that hug ridge lines and drop away into green nothing on one side. Western North Carolina. The Appalachians here don't rise gently. They shove up out of the earth, steep and sudden, cloaked in pine and oak so dense the light turns green even at noon. Cell service fades to one wavering bar, then gone. Radio stations crackle into static or fire and brimstone sermons that warn about judgment and the narrow path. I liked the silence. It matched the hollow under my ribs. I drove until my eyes burned and my hands cramped on the wheel, until the white lines started to blur, and every curve felt like it might pull me over the edge. That's when the Mountain View Motel sign appeared through the trees. Half the neon burned out, so it read Mountain V Motel, the V flickering weakly like something trying to stay alive. The gravel lot crunched under my tires. Only one other vehicle sat there, a rusted Ford pickup on flat tires, hood buried under a thick mat of pine needles and dead leaves, as though the forest had decided years ago to take it back. I killed the engine and sat for a long minute, listening to the tick of metal cooling and the low moan of wind moving through the branches overhead. The air smelled of damp earth, resin, and something faintly sour, like wet cardboard left too long in the rain. The office door jingled when I pushed it open. Inside it was dim, lit by a single fluorescent tube that buzzed and flickered. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, and the burnt coffee smell of a pot that had been left on too long. Behind the counter sat a woman in her late 60s, hair the dull gray of wet ash pulled into a severe bun, a cigarette dangling from her lower lip while she penciled answers into a crossword book so worn the pages had gone soft. She didn't look up until I set my wallet on this guard Formica. "Room," I said. My voice came out rough, unused for hours. "7's open." She slid a key across without lifting her eyes from the puzzle. The tag was thick plastic. The number 7 scratched deep into it with something sharp. "Heater's finicky. Kick it if it quits. TV don't work. Never has. Cash all right?" A single nod. I counted out 3 nights. More than I intended, but the idea of searching for another place in full dark made my stomach turn over. She took the bills without counting them, tucked them somewhere under the counter, and returned to her clues. No welcome, no local color, no warning about bears or winding roads or storms that roll in without notice. Just the faint crackle of her cigarette and the hum of an ancient cooler in the corner stocked with off-brand sodas and bottled water. Room 7 was at the far end of the single row, where the building bent at a right angle, and the parking lot lights faded into shadow. The door was painted a faded green that peeled in long, curling strips, exposing wood gone soft and gray with age. The key stuck in the lock. I had to jiggle it twice, then lean my shoulder into the door before the tumblers gave with a reluctant metallic snap. Inside, the air hit me like a damp cloth. Musty carpet, stale cigarette smoke, a faint metallic tang underneath like old pennies or blood long dried. The bed sagged deeply in the middle, mattress bowed from years of bodies, sheets thin and yellowed at the hems. A single lamp on the nightstand gave off a jaundiced glow when I switched it on, the bulb buzzing faintly. In the
the far corner stood an old tube television, rabbit ears bent, fake wood grain veneer chipped with the edges, screen dark and coated with a fine gray dust that looked undisturbed for years. I dropped my duffel onto the floor, showered in water that ran lukewarm and tasted faintly of iron, then collapsed onto the bed. Sleep didn't come easy. Grief waits until you're horizontal, until the distractions fall away. I kept seeing flashes. Her hand on mine in the hospital bed, fingers thin as twigs, twitching like she was still reaching for something just out of grasp. Her laugh from years ago, bright and sudden in the kitchen while she stirred gravy on the stove. The wet rattle in her chest during those last nights. Each breath a labor she refused to complain about. I lay staring at water stains on the ceiling that looked like faces until exhaustion finally pulled me under. The next day I drove. No destination. Just roads that twisted like veins through the mountains. Tight switchbacks. Sudden drop-offs with no guardrails. Trees crowding so close the branches scraped the roof of the car. I stopped at overlooks where mist filled the valleys like slow smoke. The kind of mist that makes the treetops look soft enough to fall into forever. The silence up there was different from city silence. Alive, listening, watchful. No birdsong at midday, only the wind moving through pine needles, and the occasional distant creak of deadwood settling. I ate gas station sandwiches that tasted like cardboard, drank coffee so bitter it hurt my teeth, tried to outrun the weight sitting behind my sternum. It didn't work. Grief doesn't travel in straight lines. It loops. I returned to the motel later than planned. Dusk had already settled, turning the pines black against a sky the color of bruised palms. The lot remained empty. Same rusted truck, same flickering sign. I let myself into room 7, kicked the heater until it coughed warm air that smelled faintly of burnt dust. Ate half a sandwich standing at the small table by the window, then sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. The room felt smaller than it had the night before. Walls thinner, corners deeper. The silence outside heavier, as though the forest had drawn closer during the day and was now pressing against the windows. I turned off the lamp around 10. Lay in the dark listening to the fridge hum in the corner and the occasional soft pop of the heater contracting as it cooled. Sleep hovered at the edges but wouldn't settle. My mind kept circling back. Her voice on the phone the last time we spoke, thin but stubborn, telling me not to worry. The way she'd squeezed my hand once, just once, when the pain was bad and she didn't want me to see her cry. Then the television came on. No remote in reach, no click of a power switch, just a soft electrical pop, like the filament in an old tube catching, followed by a low, steady hum that vibrated deep in my chest. The screen flickered gray snow, rolling horizontal bars, then steadier. Grainy footage rolled across it. A backyard in harsh summer light, green grass, chain link fence, a little girl, 5 or 6, running in wild circles, pigtails bouncing, laughing so hard she tripped and rolled onto her back, arms and legs kicking into light. The camera stayed on her, shaky handheld, the laugh bright and piercing. I knew that laugh. Not mine exactly, but close enough to hurt. My cousin Sarah's daughter when she was small. No, deeper, older, a memory I hadn't touched in 15 years. Me as a child, same backyard, same uncontrollable giggle when my father chased me with the garden hose. The picture cut hard. Now a kitchen, linoleum the color of weak tea, formica table scarred with cigarette burns and knife marks. A man in a red and black flannel shirt standing with his back to the camera, shoulders rigid. His voice came through tinny but unmistakable. You think I wanted this? You think I asked to be stuck here forever? The cadence, the slight hitch when anger caught in his throat, the way the words climbed to the end. It was me, 6 years ago, the night my ex packed a bag and walked out because I couldn't stop turning small disagreements into wars. The same words, the same frustrated rise and fall. My stomach dropped through the floorboards. I sat up fast, heart slamming against my ribs, reached behind the set for the power cord. It dangled loose, not even near the outlet. The screen kept playing.
This beast.
Another cut. My parents' house on Maple Street, the one we sold after Dad's heart attack. I was 16, storming down the hallway in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, slamming my bedroom door so hard the frame rattled and a picture fell off the wall. Mom's voice followed, soft, tired, pleading. "Honey, please, just talk to me." I remembered that fight, over grades, over college applications, over the future I was throwing away. I hadn't let myself think about it in years, hadn't wanted to feel that particular shame again. The images accelerated. Me at 10 on the porch steps, watching fireflies blink, while Dad mowed the lawn in the fading light, his whistle carrying across the yard. 3 notes, always the same 3 notes. Then, the same porch at night, rain sheeting down, me older, drunk, bottle of cheap whiskey in my hand, talking to the empty yard. I should have been better. I should have stayed home more. I should have called. My voice cracked on the last word, the same crack I'd heard when I played back voicemails I'd left myself on bad nights. I stood, legs unsteady. The room felt colder, the air thinner, harder to pull into my lungs. The blue-white glow from the screen painted the walls and ceiling, stretching shadows long and wrong. I took a step toward the television, then froze. The footage shifted again. Hospital room, fluorescent light harsh and unforgiving. Mom in the bed, eyes half open, lips moving without sound. Then me in the bathroom mirror the morning after she died, staring at my own hollow face, whispering, "I'm sorry," over and over, until the words dissolved into sobs. Strangers flickered in between. People I didn't know laughing in living rooms, a woman crying silently at a kitchen table, a man pacing a porch shouting into a phone, but the voices always circled back. Mine. Or so close they could have been mine. The sound layered, grew muddy, words overlapping until they melted into a low murmur that still somehow formed my name. Soft, insistent, like someone calling from the next room, like someone who had been waiting a long time. I sat back down because my knees wouldn't hold. The bed creaked. The hum from the television deepened, vibrated through the mattress, through my spine. Outside, the wind had stopped entirely. No branches scraping the roof. No distant howl. No sound at all except the screen and the slow, relentless parade of moments I'd tried to bury so deep I sometimes convinced myself they weren't there anymore. They weren't in order. Childhood brought into last month, good days into the worst ones. A birthday party, me blowing out candles on a cake Mom had decorated with clumsy roses while she filmed from behind. Cut to her funeral, the same white sheet cake sitting untouched on a folding table in the church basement while people milled around with paper plates and awkward sympathy. My voice narrated pieces, things I'd said aloud once, things I'd only ever thought in the dark. I didn't mean it. I should have visited more. I can't do this again. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, until they weren't just replaying that commenting. Judgment layered over sorrow, accusation wrapped in grief. My name again, drawn out slow. Almost tender. Almost angry. Time dissolved. The clock on the nightstand read 2:19, then 3:12, then 3:47. The images cycled faster, more intimate. Me crying in the car the night the oncologist said stage 4. Me laughing at a 4th of July barbecue with friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Me sitting alone in this very room. Wait. That stopped me cold. The footage showed me from behind, sitting on the same bed, lamp on low, staring at the wall. Shoulders hunched the same way. Head tilted the same slight angle. The timestamp in the corner was yesterday's date. Then the figure on screen turned just enough for me to see my own face in profile, eyes wide, mouth open like I was about to speak or scream. I choked on my own breath. The room tilted. I wanted to shout, to smash the screen with my fist, to run out into the night and keep running until the mountain swallowed me. But my body refused. The air had thickened, pressed me down into the mattress like wet concrete. The footage looped back. Childhood, teenage rage, hospital vigil, last week, right now.
Peace.
Until all the versions of me overlapped, voices piling into a roar of my name, my failures, my regrets, all at once. Then, at 4:03, According to the glowing red digits, the screen snapped to black. No fade, no slow dim. Just sudden nothing. The hum trailed off slowly, reluctantly, until only silence remained, so complete it rang in my ears like tinnitus. I sat there until my neck cramped, until the afterimage of blue-white light faded from my retinas, and the room returned to ordinary dark. When I finally stood, my legs shook like I'd run for hours. I touched the television. Cold. Stone cold. No warmth in the case, no dust disturbed on top. The cord still dangled, unplugged, exactly as it had been. I didn't sleep after that. I sat against the headboard with the lamp on, staring at the blank screen until gray light leaked behind the curtains. Morning came slow and dim. The set was off, silent, innocent. I packed methodically, shirts folded, toothbrush rinsed, tufel zipped, like the ordinary motions could erase what I'd seen. When I walked to the office to drop the key, the woman was there in the same chair, same crossword, same cigarette. She didn't ask how I slept. I didn't tell her. I set the key on the counter and left without a word. I drove that day until the ridges flattened and the trees thinned into rolling farmland. Found a chain motel 2 states over. Bright fluorescent lights in the lot, thin walls, cable television that showed 24-hour nibs and sitcom reruns. I left the TV on all night, volume low, just to fill the quiet. It helped for a while. But grief doesn't leave cleanly. It clings, it waits. And sometimes, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, when the building is still, and the hallway lights buzz faintly through the door crack, I wake certain the screen in the corner is glowing again. Not bright, just a faint blue wash across the ceiling tiles. I don't look. I keep my eyes fixed on the opposite wall, breathing slow and shallow, waiting for the hum to start. Most nights it doesn't. Most nights there is only the clock ticking and the distant rumble of trucks on the interstate. Most nights. Last month I stayed outside Knoxville. 1-story place, doors opening straight onto cracked asphalt. I woke around 4 to that same low electric hum. The television was off. I checked twice, cord plugged in this time, power switch firmly in the off position. Still the hum.
This beast.
Still the faint blue flicker at the edges of my vision, like a screen trying to wake itself. I lay rigid, heart knocking hard enough to bruise bone, until the sound faded, and the room went dark again. I still don't know what room 7 held. I don't know if it pulled those memories straight out of my skull, or if it had been collecting them of years from other people who passed through, other men who sat on that bed staring at nothing, other lives that ended quietly and never quite left. I only know the room felt like it had been waiting. Not for me specifically. Just for someone still enough, broken enough, hollow enough, to sit in the dark and let the reel play. I keep moving. New towns, new motels, new beds that don't know my name. I avoid places with old tube televisions in the corner. I keep lights on when I sleep. But every so often, when the road is empty and the night is quiet, and the dashboard clock glows the same cold blue as that screen, I catch myself wondering if the next television that flickers to life will show me sitting in this car right now. Hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the white lines unrolling, whispering my own name like a question I still can't answer. I keep driving anyway. Because stopping feels worse. Because somewhere, in some room that smells of damp carpet and old smoke, the set is still warm to the touch. Waiting for the next person to turn off the lamp. Waiting for the hum to begin. Waiting to show them the pieces of themselves they thought they'd left behind in another life, another state, another grief. And when it does, they'll sit just like I did. Frozen, listening. Watching the memories spool out until there is nothing left to watch but themselves, reflected back in grainy light. Asking the same question over and over into the dark. Why didn't you stay? The answer never comes. The screen just goes black. The hum fades. And you're left in the silence, wondering if it's really over, or if it's only paused, waiting for you to close your eyes again.
I never planned to drive into those mountains after the funeral. I just did it. 1 minute I was standing in the Georgia cemetery, watching people walk away in their black clothes. The next minute, I was in my truck, with the engine running and the road stretching north. Mom's service had been small, closed casket, because she didn't want anyone seeing what the sickness had done to her face. I stood there holding a folded program until my fingers went numb, listening to the preacher talk about peace, while the wind moved the pine branches overhead. When everyone left for the church hall and the coffee and the casseroles, I didn't follow. I got in the truck and left the red clay behind. The house was waiting back in town. Her recliner still turned toward the television, her half-finished crossword on the side table, the blanket she crocheted draped over the arm. It smelled like lavender soap mixed with the sharp hospital smell that had moved in during the last months. I couldn't face walking through that door, so I drove. No map, no plan. Just north, because she used to talk about the Appalachians like they were old friends. The mountains remember everything, she would say when I was little, sitting on the porch while thunder rolled far away. They keep the stories nobody else wants. Back then, I thought it was just talk. Now, I'm not so sure. The highways turned into 2 lanes pretty quick, then into roads with cracks running down the middle like veins. The trees got thicker. Pine, hemlock, oak, all second growth crowding right up to the pavement. Cell service disappeared, except for one bar that came and went like it was teasing me. Radio stations faded to static, or preachers warning about Judgment Day. I liked the quiet. It matched the empty spot under my ribs. I drove until my eyes felt full of sand and my hands hurt from gripping the wheel too long. Until the white lines started to double, and every curve felt like it might pull the truck sideways into the dark. That's when the Mountain View Motel sign showed up through the trees. Half the neon was burned out. It read Mountain Vim Motel. The V blinked slow and tired. The gravel lot was empty, except for one old Ford pickup sitting on flat tires. Pine needles covered the hood so thick it looked like the forest had decided to bury it years ago. I pulled in. Tires crunched. I sat there a minute, listening to the engine tick down and the wind moving through the branches. The air smelled wet and green with something sour underneath, like old leaves left to rot. I walked to the office. A little bell jingled when I opened the door. Inside it was dim. One fluorescent light buzzed overhead. The place smelled like cigarette smoke and coffee that had been sitting too long. Behind the counter was an older woman. Gray hair pulled back tight. Cigarette hanging from her lip. She was working on a crossword puzzle and didn't look up right away. I stood there until she finished a word. Room, I said. 7's open. She slid a key across the counter. The tag was thick plastic with the number 7 scratched deep. Heater might quit on you. Kick it. Phone line goes bad when it storms. Don't count on calling out. Cash okay? She nodded. I counted out 3 nights. I don't know why 3. I just couldn't think about driving any farther that night. Room 7 was at the end of the row. The building turned a corner there, and the parking lights didn't reach. The door was green, but the paint was coming off in long curls. Wood underneath looked soft and gray. The key stuck. I had to shake it and push my shoulder against the door before it turned. Inside, the air was thick. Damp carpet, old smoke. A faint metal smell like pennies or blood that's dried a long time. The bed sagged in the middle.
sheets thin and yellow around the edges. A single lamp on the nightstand gave off weak yellow light that buzzed. An old black rotary phone sat on the other nightstand. Heavy receiver. Curly cord. Numbers weren't smooth. In the corner was a tube TV covered in dust. It looked like it hadn't been turned on in decades. I dropped my bag. Took a shower. Water came out lukewarm and tasted like rust. I lay on the bed in the dark and tried to sleep. Sleep didn't come easy.
This beast.
I kept seeing Mom's face. Pale, thin, trying to smile even when breathing hurt. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Eventually, I drifted off. The next morning, I woke early. Gray light coming around the curtains. Rain had started sometime in the night. Soft patter on the roof. I drove anyway. The roads were slick. Mist hung low in the valleys. I followed whatever path looked interesting. Switchbacks. Steep drops with no railing. Trees so close the branches scraped the truck. I stopped at overlooks where you could see miles of green rolling down into nothing. The quiet was heavy. No birds. No cars. Just wind in the pines. And sometimes a far-off creak like an old house settling. I ate a sandwich from the cooler. Drank coffee from a gas station that tasted like burnt rubber. I tried to feel lighter. It didn't happen. I came back to the motel when the sky started turning dark again. The lot was still empty. The rusty truck hadn't moved an inch. Room 7 felt smaller. Walls closer. I kicked the heater until warm air came out. It smelled like dust burning. I ate another sandwich. Sat on the bed watching the dark press against the windows. I went to sleep early. The second day was almost the same. More driving. More empty roads. More silence that felt like it was listening back. I started noticing little things. How the mist never really lifted. How some trees looked bent like they were leaning toward the road on purpose. How the quiet got deeper the farther I went into the hollers. I told myself it was just grief making everything feel strange. I told myself I would leave soon. The third night, the storm came for real. It started slow. Wind picked up. Branches tapped the roof like fingers. Then rain hit hard. Sheets of it against the windows. Thunder rolled down from the high ridges. Low. Growling. The power flickered. Lights dimmed. Brightened. Dimmed again.
Beast.
They settled on a dull orange that made everything look sick. I had already packed most of my things. Bag zipped. Cooler in the truck. I was going to leave at first light. 3 nights was more than enough. I wanted pavement. Lights. Noise. Anything but this quiet. Around 1 in the morning the phone rang. It was loud. Sharp. Old ring that cut through the storm noise like a blade. I stared at it. No one knew where I was. I hadn't told my sister the motel name. No one had this number. It rang 6 times. I picked it up just to make it stop. Hello? Nothing at first. Then breathing. Slow. Deep. Close to the mouthpiece. Not fast breathing. Not scared. Just steady. Like someone standing right there. Listening to me listen. Hello? I said again. Voice louder. More breathing. A small sigh at the end. Tired. hung up. My heart was beating in my throat now. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the phone. 2 minutes later it rang again. Same breathing. Heavier. Closer. I could hear the soft wet sound of lips parting. Tongue moving. I grabbed the cord and pulled hard. The plug came out of the wall with a pop. The ringing stopped. 10 seconds. Then it started again. Softer. Muffled. Coming from inside.
The exact words from 6 years ago. The night my girlfriend left. The night I yelled because I was scared and angry and didn't know how to say the real thing. Word for word. Same rise in my voice. Same crack when I realized I had hurt her too much.
This beast.
I stared at the receiver. It was back in the cradle. Cord loose on the floor. Still, my voice kept going. Looping. Getting louder. Softer. Like someone walking away down a hallway, then turning around and coming back. I picked up the receiver again, put it to my ear. Breathing. Slow. Patient. Then Mom's voice. Honey, it's okay. The way she said it when I was small and thunder scared me. Thin. Weak. Full of love even when she was hurting. My eyes burned. I hung up fast. The ringing started again. I moved to the corner. Sat on the floor. Knees up. Back against the wall. Lightning flashed again and again. Thunder rolled. Rain hammered. The ringing mixed with the storm. Paused during the loudest crashes. Started in the quiet spaces between.
This beast.